In the order of beast tamers, every disciple gets to bond with a spirit beast when they come of age. In my first life, I took pity on a badly wounded white tiger in the corner. My heart went out to him, so I chose him. My junior, Saraphina, used the opportunity to bond with the golden dragon our master had specially found for me. But the golden dragon showed no signs of evolution for 100 years. The white tiger, however, grew into a high-level divine beast in just a few short years. The day he took human form, he even awakened the bloodline of a primordial beast, becoming the most powerful spirit beast in our entire order. But just as I was about to be named the new head of the order, the white tiger I had raised with my own hands lunged and tore off my right arm. As I lay bleeding out, I asked him why. Only then did he reveal the truth. If it wasn't for you, Saraphina would have been the one to choose me. Under Saraphina's triumphant gaze, I finally understood. I was never the master he wanted. It had always been her. Reborn, I didn't spare a single glance for the dying white tiger in the corner. I turned and embraced the golden dragon that was meant for me. It was only when my master, with tears in his eyes, begged me to stay away from the tiger that I understood. It wasn't just me who had been reborn. Alara Saraphina, today is your coming-of-age ceremony. According to the traditions of our order, you may each choose a spirit beast to bond with. As soon as I opened my eyes, our master's commanding voice filled my ears. I stood there, stunned. It took a long moment for my gaze to focus on the kind, smiling old man on the ceremonial seat. The sight of him made my eyes well up. I was reborn. Reborn on the day of the ceremony, the day I chose my spirit beast. In my last life, I saw the white tiger in the corner, his eyes pleading and full of pain. I felt so sorry for him, so afraid he would die from his injuries, that I gave up the golden dragon my master had painstakingly acquired for me, and chose to bond with him instead. Saraphina, whose talent was average at best, used the moment everyone was trying to talk me out of it to sneak away with the golden dragon. Under my care, the white tiger healed quickly and evolved rapidly, becoming a high-level divine beast. The day he took human form, he even awakened the bloodline of a primordial beast. But Saraphina's magnificent-looking golden dragon was all show and no substance. For years, its power stagnated. The other disciples, already resentful that she had secretly bonded with the dragon meant for me, openly mocked her. In the end, the mediocre Saraphina and her useless dragon faded into obscurity. But just when I thought the bond between me and my white tiger was unbreakable, he attacked. At the ceremony to name me the new head of the order, in front of all the elders and disciples, he tore off my sword arm. As I lay in a pool of my own blood, I asked him why. The white tiger, now in his human form, stood beside Saraphina in a pristine white robe and stared down at me with cold, hard eyes. His dark eyes held not a shred of affection, only endless annoyance and disgust. If it wasn't for you, I would have left with Saraphina years ago. She wouldn't be stuck with that useless worm, a laughingstock for everyone. Alara, did you really think I'd be grateful for the elixirs and spirit stones you threw at me? Alara, you make me sick. I never imagined that the creature I had poured my heart and soul into would turn out to be such a treacherous monster. Consumed by rage and pain, I bled to death, never getting to see my master, the man who found me at the foot of the mountain and raised me with love one last time. But fate has given me a second chance. Kai, let's see if your beloved Saraphina, without my help, can raise you into the magnificent beast you were in our past life. The moment our master finished speaking, Saraphina eagerly stepped forward and pointed at the wheezing white tiger in the corner of the cage. I want him. She had a delicate, fragile look. Lowering her gaze, she put on a piteous expression. He's so pitiful. Please, sister, let me have him. I promise I'll heal him and help him become a high-level divine beast. So she was reborn too. Saraphina was not just cruel, she was also a fool. She had no idea that Kai healed so quickly last time only because I fed him a fortune in elixirs and spirit stones. This time, she could have him first. I was eager to see if this dying tiger would, as she wished, grow into the formidable beast of our past life. I smiled, about to agree, but my master cut me off. What's your hurry? Do you think your sister would fight you for him? Alara, my dear, look at this golden dragon. I went to the dragon clan myself to ask for him for you. You're destined to lead this order. Only a golden dragon is worthy of you. The old man on the high seat couldn't maintain his stern facade. He leaned toward me, winking furiously. I smiled and, ignoring Saraphina's mixed look of envy and scorn, stepped forward and bowed to my master. Yes, master. I will obey. Saraphina's grip on the white tiger tightened. I saw the tiger flinch in pain, and couldn't help but feel a flicker of satisfaction. The tiger let out a fawning cry in her arms, and only then did she loosen her hold. She turned to me, her voice dripping with sarcasm. You're quite something, sister, to have the master favor you so much. He wants to give you all the best things. But a golden dragon may look strong now, who knows what the future holds. You should think carefully, sister, lest you regret it. I ran my hand over the dragon's smooth scales and lifted my chin, retorting without a shred of politeness. I grew up under our master's watch and reached the divine stage at 18. You could say I'm the most talented disciple in the order. You, little sister, were apprenticed at 10 and you're still a novice. I doubt you'll ever reach the divine stage in this lifetime. It's only natural the master favors me. Who doesn't prefer a talented and hard-working student? After all, you skip your lessons 4 days a week, unlike me, who's up training before dawn every single day. Watching her face drain of all color was immensely satisfying. In my last life, I was always careful not to bring up the gap between us to protect her pride. This time, if she was going to ask for it, I wasn't going to be so nice. What surprised me, though, was that my master, who usually played the peacemaker, didn't stop me. Instead, he just stroked his beard, nodding in approval. A wild thought popped into my head. Could it be that my master was reborn too? Ignoring the fuming Saraphina, I took my new golden dragon to see the master. The old man was sipping tea in his courtyard. He grinned from ear to ear when he saw me. Ah, my Alara is here. Come sit with your master. I walked over and knelt obediently at his knee. This little dragon's name is Orion. He's the Dragon King's youngest son. His father owed me a favor, and since you were coming of age, I thought I'd swipe his boy to be your bonded beast. My master stroked my hair tenderly. My Alara is all grown up. You're not the little girl I found anymore, the one who would cling to my leg and whine for sweets. A lump formed in my throat, and I almost burst into tears. I hugged him like I did when I was a child, my voice catching. To my master, I'll always be your little girl. Orion is incredibly talented, but the golden dragon bloodline is special. To raise him right, you need to pile on the celestial treasures. In the last life, sigh. Don't worry, Alara, my dear. Master will help you raise Orion properly. Forget about that ungrateful tiger. His eyes reddened too. You're the child I raised. I have no children of my own, and I've always thought of you as my daughter. Alara, listen to your master. Stay far away from that white tiger. Master, I'm not thinking about him. I held my master's hand, just like when I was little, and asked, Master, were you reborn too? He looked at me shocked. You too? With my master filling in the gaps, I learned what happened after I died. Saraphina, with Kai's help, had become the head of the order. But her talent was mediocre and her leadership skills were non-existent. Dissatisfaction grew within the order. In a fit of madness, Saraphina and Kai dealt with dissent brutally. Any disciple who dared to voice opposition would have their arms torn off by Kai and be fed to the beasts in the back mountains. One by one, the more capable disciples left the order under the guise of going on training expeditions. Those who remained were too weak or too scared to say anything. Our order, it was destroyed by her. Thank the heavens you've returned. After leaving my master, I returned to my quarters with a mountain of treasures he had given me. In my last life, with my endless supply of elixirs and spirit stones, Kai's wounds healed in just a week, and he quickly evolved into a high-level divine beast. This time, I was curious to see if his precious Saraphina had the means to raise him to the same heights. Orion was healthy and lively. He was constantly zipping around. The slinky little golden dragon's favorite game was to hide on rafters, on top of cabinets, or in some other concealed spot, and then shoot out as I passed by. Seeing me clutch my chest in mock fright, he would then drape himself over my shoulder and nuzzle my cheek as if to apologize. Unlike Kai's cold indifference in my past life, Orion was incredibly clingy. He wanted to be with me for everything, from training to sleeping. Whenever I got frustrated with my training, he would nudge his little head forward, place his adorable horns in my palm, and gaze at me with his bright golden eyes, which were always filled with adoration and love. I stopped paying any attention to Kai and Saraphina. My days were filled with training and feeding my little golden dragon. My master was right. Unlike the scrawny, underfed dragon Saraphina had raised last time, with the constant supply of celestial treasures from me and my master, Orion visibly thickened in just 1 month. I carved him a small pendant from the finest jade. He wore it around his neck constantly, flying around and showing it off to anyone he met. Orion was quite the little tyrant. Any junior disciple he caught who couldn't come up with at least 100 words of praise for his pendant would inevitably get a face full of water spray. In just 1 week, I received 27 complaints. I found it hilarious and tapped his head, telling him to behave. I remembered the jade pendant I had so carefully carved for Kai in my last life, which he had carelessly tossed aside. Meanwhile, a worthless rock Saraphina had casually given him was treated like a priceless treasure he carried for 3 years. You really can't compare people, or beasts for that matter. I smiled and stroked Orion's little horns. The little dragon, who was busy coiling his gleaming golden body around the jade pendant, looked up at me confused. Then he quickly tucked the pendant further under him, looking like a little miser afraid I'd take it back. Look at you hiding it. If you bully the outer gate disciples again, I'm taking this pendant back. The little dragon grumbled and nuzzled my cheek a couple of times, reluctantly agreeing. Under my meticulous care, Orion broke through to a high-level divine beast in just 3 months and was ready to take human form. I personally selected the finest fabrics and golden thread, and had the weaving workshop rush make a set of clothes for him. I put them, along with a top-grade spirit weapon, in a storage pouch for him to carry, just in case he suddenly transformed while he was out and had to come back naked. Orion treasured the outfit. Just like with the jade pendant, he showed off his new clothes to everyone he met. When Saraphina heard the news, she stormed into my residence with Kai, demanding to know what trick I had pulled. You must have used some secret, forbidden technique, sister. Otherwise, how could that useless worm be about to take human form so quickly? If you can't raise a spirit beast, then don't. My Orion eats 10 high-grade elixirs and drinks 7 vials of spirit dew every day. He gets a handful of high-grade water spirit stones with every meal, and mid to low-grade stones and elixirs are just snacks for him. I give him only the best of everything. Dragons are naturally gifted, and Orion is the Dragon King's youngest son, raised on celestial treasures since he was in the egg. Is it really so strange that he'd evolve in 3 months? I looked Saraphina up and down with feigned contempt, my gaze landing on Kai behind her. Your white tiger here has had his injuries for 3 months and still hasn't healed. He's as skinny as a stray cat. I doubt he's had a decent meal in his life. Kai flinched and hid behind Saraphina. The Kai of today was a stark contrast to the one I had raised. He was incredibly gaunt, his limbs no thicker than the tip of Orion's tail. His once white fur was matted and clumped together. The wound from 3 months ago still hadn't healed. A gash the length of my little finger on his back was festering and infested with maggots. He was a pathetic sight. Seeing him like this put me in a great mood. Even looking at Saraphina's stupid face seemed a little more tolerable. My words left Saraphina beet red with shame. Unlike me, who was an orphan but treated like a daughter by our master and constantly supported by him, Saraphina had a family, but her lack of talent meant she was never favored. The monthly resources the order provided were barely enough for her own needs, let alone raising a severely injured spirit beast. To be blunt, it was a miracle Kai was still alive. But what did that have to do with me? I took a sip of my spirit tea, feeling quite pleased with myself. You really have all the best things here, sister. This spirit tea is so fine, I'd never have even seen it if I hadn't come here. This tea was the prize for winning last year's grand tournament. If you can't have any, it's because you're not good enough. I glanced at Saraphina, who was standing there with a face like thunder, and almost burst out laughing. Not just anyone deserves to drink the finest spirit tea. Saraphina and Kai just stood there, refusing to leave. I was getting annoyed and was about to kick them out when Orion returned. A young man in a golden robe ran in excitedly, holding a bouquet of colorful wildflowers. Sister, I'm back. I successfully took human form. In his human form, Orion was devastatingly handsome. Saraphina's greedy eyes swept over his face. Realizing his identity as the Dragon Prince, her tone became sycophantic. Orion, you're amazing, taking human form so quickly. Not like Kai, the useless thing, still hasn't shown any improvement. Orion handed me the flowers before turning to look Saraphina up and down. Lady, who gave you permission to call me Orion? Do we know each other? Instead of wasting your time trying to butter me up, you should figure out how to feed that white cat of yours. He's nothing but skin and bones. I could crush him with one finger. I saw a flicker of resentment in Kai's eyes and frowned, pulling Orion closer to my side. My past life taught me that Kai, not Saraphina, was the truly vicious one, disloyal, disrespectful, and cruel. If he dared to kill me in front of everyone last time, he wouldn't hesitate to use some dirty trick against Orion this time. Orion was powerful, but he was also straightforward and naive. If I didn't protect him, he could easily fall into Kai's trap. Fortunately, Saraphina had neither the power nor the brains. A sickly tiger like Kai shouldn't be able to cause much trouble. After Saraphina and Kai left that day, I heard that the sounds of smashing and screaming from her quarters lasted for a full half-hour. A friend of mine came by to chat and told me that the next time she saw Kai, his injuries were even worse. Not only was there a new bowl-sized, bloody hole on his back, but his left front leg was twisted at an unnatural angle, as if someone had broken it with a heavy object. He limped when he walked. My friend's voice was filled with a mix of pity and regret as she told me this. A white tiger is supposed to be the king of the forest. How did he end up like this? I chuckled and flicked her forehead. Instead of worrying about other people's beasts, you should go check on your little Azure. A green snake is no match for a dragon. I'm afraid Orion might not know his own strength and hurt him. Sister, how could you say that about me? I turned to see Orion returning, holding little Azure by the tail. The limp green snake, seeing its master, immediately shot over to her, crying for all it was worth. My friend looked at her little snake with pity, but she knew Orion was genuinely helping train him. She thanked Orion and hurried off with her spirit beast. In human form, Orion inherited the handsome features of the dragon clan: broad shoulders, a narrow waist, sharp brows, and stellar eyes. But in front of me, he always acted like a child. Hearing me say behind his back that he didn't know his own strength, he huffed and wrapped his dragon tail around my waist. How could you say that about me, sister? His golden hair was tied up high. He buried his head in the crook of my neck, his soft hair brushing against my cheek, his warm breath on my skin. He whined in a soft, complaining tone. When am I ever rough? Last night, when I was massaging you, you seemed to be enjoying it. I laughed and reached up to cup his face. Yes, I was wrong. My Orion has the most perfect control. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my head, and deliberately lowered his voice. Then, as compensation, can I sleep with you tonight? Orion paused, then added, as a human. Before he took human form, Orion loved to sleep coiled up beside me. The moment he evolved and was about to transform, I had prepared a room for him next to mine. But on his first night as a human, he stubbornly refused to leave my bed. Orion, you're a man now. We can't sleep together. So you don't like me anymore now that I'm human? The little golden dragon was so upset his horns popped out. I found it amusing but couldn't bring myself to be harsh with him. In the end, we compromised. He could continue to sleep next to me, but only in his beast form. This went on for half a month, but for some reason he was bringing it up again, insisting on sleeping with me in his human form. Orion. He cut me off. I know, you're going to say we can't sleep together. His tail coiled tighter around my waist. But I love Alara. Not like a sister. I'm in love with you. My face flushed. I was about to say something when a rustling sound came from the window. Orion and I both turned to see Kai. He was a wreck, covered in blood and filth. One of his front paws, clinging to the windowsill, was bent outwards at a sickening angle. He looked at me, his black eyes filled with pleading. I sighed in annoyance and walked over to open the window. But Kai took the opportunity to try and squeeze inside, rubbing his head against my dress, smearing it with a disgusting mixture of blood and mud. So gross. I quickly backed away, but Kai collapsed in front of me, rolling onto his back and exposing his vulnerable belly and neck in a gesture of complete submission. In my last life, I had moved heaven and earth for him, putting his needs before my own, giving him the best of everything. Yet he had been so cold and distant, he wouldn't even let me pet him. I thought he was just naturally aloof, but now I see it was because I spoiled him, breeding an arrogance that knew no hardship. This time, Kai got his wish and ended up with his precious Saraphina. Now he comes crawling back to me? It turned my stomach. Does your master know you're here, groveling on your back and begging for scraps of affection? You pathetic, sick cat. Do you actually think you could replace my Orion and become my bonded beast? Before Kai could react, Orion exploded. You damn stray. You dare try to seduce my sister? I'll tear you apart. Orion transformed into his dragon form, grabbed Kai, and soared into the sky. He flicked his tail, sending Kai flying toward Saraphina's quarters. Knowing Saraphina's temper, she would surely beat Kai half to death for coming to me. But I felt no pity for him. My little golden dragon had just confessed his love for me, and I needed to figure out how to respond. After my rebirth, my relationship with my master was closer than ever. He was always thinking of me, and I would visit him whenever I had the chance. Orion's confession had really thrown me for a loop. After that day, the little dragon insisted on sleeping in my bed. He'd be in his cute, obedient dragon form when we went to sleep, but every morning I'd wake up to find a tall, handsome man holding me in his arms. I couldn't even bring myself to speak harshly to him, let alone hit him. To avoid him, I tried staying over at a friend's place, but I'd always get a message before bed that Orion was waiting for me at the foot of the mountain. The nights were cold, and even though I knew a dragon of his power could handle a little frost, the image of him waiting for me, looking all sad and dejected, always made my heart melt. Utterly defeated, I brought it up with my master when he called me over for snacks, hoping he could offer some advice. I never thought Orion would have those kinds of feelings, I said, sighing heavily as I nibbled on a sweet osmanthus cake he had prepared for me. The old man just chuckled and stroked his beard, not looking worried at all. What's the big deal? Is it really worth getting so worked up over? Orion isn't a child. Don't forget, dragons mature slowly. He was already 300 years old when I brought him to the order. I froze, the osmanthus cake suddenly losing its flavor. What? Did you really think he was a little kid just because he was always following you around calling you sister? My master roared with laughter at my expression. I was so embarrassed I couldn't speak. Seeing me like this, the old man sighed again. I raised you. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. In your last life, you probably had similar feelings for that white tiger. I fell silent, not knowing how to answer. I couldn't deny it. In my last life, my world revolved around Kai. I gave him the best of everything, scrimping on my own needs to satisfy his every demand. Even though he was always distant, I never let it bother me. To say that all that devotion was just the affection of a tamer for her beast, even I couldn't believe that. My master reached out and gently ruffled my hair. Alara, don't let someone else's mistakes narrow your own path. I thought about his words for a long time, and suddenly, everything became clear. This time around, I had poured just as much of my heart into Orion as I had into Kai last time. If I could fall for a heartless monster like Kai, there was no reason I shouldn't have feelings for a handsome, thoughtful man like Orion. The truth was, being reborn had made me cautious. I had lost the courage to love as fiercely as I had before. Thank you, master. I understand now. The old man smiled at me kindly and waved for me to go. I turned and saw Orion waiting for me outside the hall. He was backlit by the sun, his handsome features slightly blurred, but his golden eyes were bright, like the stars that filled the sky on the night of my rebirth, when I sat alone in the courtyard drinking. He held out his hand to me. A breeze blew past, lifting his long golden hair, making it seem as if he were bathed in light. Sister. I heard him say, "Come on. I'm here to take you home." It was time for the Order's grand tournament again. A week ago, my master had given me my orders. You're of age now, so you and Orion must compete in this tournament. Your opponents are not to be underestimated. Your seniors have been working with their beasts for years, and their teamwork is exceptional. You must not be complacent." Before I could say anything, Orion chimed in, disgruntled. "Master, my sister and I have great teamwork too." He took my hand, answering with a smug air. "The bond between my seniors and their beasts is nothing compared to ours." I face-palmed, wanting to find a cloth to stuff in his mouth. But my master just laughed. Good, I believe in you. This time, try your best. No, you must win. With you by Alara's side, after this tournament, I can finally retire and pass the title to her." The grand tournament wasn't much of a challenge for me. Most of the higher-level disciples were out on expeditions and wouldn't return just for the tournament. The ones who remained were generally weaker than me, and even the few who could match my skill had beasts far inferior to Orion. On the third day of the competition, I faced an unexpected opponent. To my surprise, Saraphina and Kai had somehow made it into the top 30 and were drawn to fight against me. Saraphina wore her usual white dress, cultivating her delicate, fragile image. But Kai's appearance was a real shock. Somehow he had taken human form. He wore a moon-white robe, his long white hair tied back in a high ponytail. But unlike the cold, imposing figure from my past life, his eyes were now filled with a dark gloom. In the few times we'd crossed paths, his dark eyes seemed to be permanently bloodshot. A friend told me that Kai's injuries were all healed and his power had skyrocketed in just a few days. He was now a high-level divine beast. Yesterday in the arena, he had faced a junior snow wolf and completely crushed it. You should have seen it, sister. Kai tore a piece of flesh the size of my palm from the junior's shoulder and swallowed it down, his eyes blood red. He looked less like a spirit beast and more like a feral animal. A knot of unease tightened in my chest. I tapped Orion's arm, warning him to be careful when he went up. To save time, the tournament was held on 3 platforms simultaneously. Soon it was our turn. Saraphina held her sword, her face a mask of smugness. "You didn't know, did you, sister? My Kai is a high-level divine beast now too." I didn't answer. There was something very wrong about Saraphina and Kai. Even though I looked down on them, I couldn't afford to be careless. Kai no longer cowered behind Saraphina like he used to, but his eyes were still dark and heavy, and he stared at me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "Alara," I suddenly heard him speak my name. "If I beat this worm, will you let me be your bonded beast? This time, I swear I'll protect you." Kai stared at me without blinking, his eyes filled with a nauseatingly deep affection. It seemed Kai had regained his memories of our past life. After how he treated me back then, to regain his memories and still have the audacity to try and replace Orion. It was utterly disgusting. A wave of nausea washed over me, and I gagged. Hearing Kai's words, Orion's face instantly darkened, looking like a man whose wife had just been stolen. "Worm. You're the worm. I am a true golden dragon. And you pathetic cat, think you can steal my wife? I'll kill you." Orion roared and transformed into his dragon form, lunging at Kai. Kai roared back, shifting into a white tiger, and the two of them clashed. I watched for a moment, and realized my friend hadn't exaggerated at all. Kai's dark eyes were now blood red. He was vicious and decisive, and after Orion's claws tore a gash in his back, the smell of blood seemed to make him lose his mind completely. I couldn't help but worry. My grip on my sword loosened, and for a moment, I was distracted, allowing Saraphina's blade to slice off a lock of my hair. "Why are you staring at my Kai, sister? You don't really think he'd betray me for you, do you?" Saraphina's once pretty face was now twisted with jealousy. She charged at me with her sword, and I snapped back to reality, spinning to dodge her attack. "Alara, I'm fine. Don't get distracted because of me." Orion was keeping an eye on me. Seeing my lapse, he whipped Kai to the ground with his tail and quickly looked over at me. I nodded, then with a flick of my wrist, I raised my sword and attacked Saraphina. Saraphina was lazy and foolish. She couldn't beat me even with another 10 years of practice. I didn't want to waste my time fighting her, so I simply kicked her off the platform. The situation with Orion and Kai, however, was a bit more heated. I was surprised. Setting aside their natural talents, Orion had reached a high level nearly half a year before Kai. Logically, defeating Kai should have been easy, but they were locked in a fierce battle. While Orion wasn't losing, The wounds on his body showed he wasn't getting the better of it either. There's no honor on the battlefield, especially not against an opponent like Kai. Without hesitation, I raised my sword and joined the fray. Orion and I were perfectly in sync. Overwhelmed by the two of us, Kai quickly lost his advantage. The moment my sword pierced his flesh, I saw him look at me, his red eyes wide with disbelief. Alara, how could you do this to me? In our last life, you'd fret for days if I even got a scratch from training. His whining was getting on my nerves. If the tournament rules didn't forbid killing, I would have slit his throat right then and there. Kai clearly didn't know how to read the room and kept babbling. I took Orion's hand and walked off the platform without a backward glance. The grand tournament ended, and as expected, Orion and I were the champions. My master was planning to leave the mountain to travel the world, and intended to pass the title of head of the order to me in a month. Orion was pestering me to marry him, and after days of his wheedling, I finally gave in. I managed to swindle a bag of high-grade spirit stones from my master, and before leaving, I brought up Kai's strange transformation. It's so odd. Just a week before the tournament, someone saw Kai getting food for Saraphina, and he was still weak and pathetic. How did he become a completely different beast by the time of the competition? For once, the old man wasn't smiling. He sighed heavily. I've investigated with the other elders. Saraphina fed Kai a forbidden potion. It can dramatically increase his power for a short time, but everything in this world has a price. Kai's body is now severely depleted. Forget a spirit beast, he's probably weaker than an ordinary tiger. In all my 100 years of beast taming, I've never seen a master be so cruel to their own beast. Kai, he's completely ruined. My master was a kind man even now, he felt some pity for Kai. But Orion wasn't so forgiving. Kai's words of affection that day had thoroughly enraged the possessive little dragon. He snorted and turned his head away, refusing to look at us. I knew what was going on. I quickly ran my hand through his long hair to soothe him. He deserves it. I love you the most. Orion's expression softened a little. He took my hand and started whining, wanting to go back. After saying goodbye to my master, we walked back hand in hand. I was still thinking about the forbidden potion, and Orion called my name several times without me hearing. Even when I did, I just gave a distracted reply. The moment we stepped through the door, a tall man cornered me. It took me a second to realize what was happening. Orion's handsome face was as black as coal, and his entire body radiated a "I am not happy" aura. I felt a pang of guilt. Who are you thinking about, sister? That sick cat? Orion hadn't called me sister like that in a long time. The word sent a shiver down my spine. I instinctively tried to back away, but he held me tighter. The man's features were sharp and striking. When he was pouting, I never thought much of it, but now that he was angry, I realized how dangerously handsome he was. The slight arch of his brow gave his golden eyes a deep, perilous look. I gave a nervous laugh. Why would I be thinking about Kai? Before I could finish, he leaned down and kissed me. As our lips met, he let out a low chuckle and told me to open my eyes and look at him. I met his gaze, a sea of shimmering gold, and my heart melted completely. I don't know when, but he lifted me by the waist and carried me to the bed. He leaned over me, pinning my wrists above my head with one hand. With the other, he unfastened my outer robe and his fingers hesitantly slipped inside. The cool touch made me shudder, and he kissed me deeper, his magnified features just as beautiful as ever. His kisses left me dizzy and disoriented. All I could do was mindlessly call his name. Orion. He suckled on my lips, his breath hot against my ear. Seeing my body go limp, he let out another low laugh. Sister. Alara. Orion kissed my eyes. My wife. My wedding to Orion was set for after the ceremony to name me head of the order. My master had packed his bags and was planning to set off on his travels right after our wedding banquet. I was sad to see him go, but seeing how happy he was, all I could do was gather a huge stash of elixirs and treasures for him to take on his journey. I wanted everything to be perfect for my master's last celebration with us, for the wedding and the ceremony to go off without a hitch. But with so much going on lately, I was exhausted. The ceremony to name me head of the order had just finished, and I had just changed into my wedding dress when someone attacked me from behind. In the last second before I lost consciousness, only one thought crossed my mind. Damn you, Kai. Sure enough, when I opened my eyes again, the person standing in front of me was a gaunt, skeletal Kai. The side effects of the potion must have taken their toll. Kai looked even weaker than when I first saw him. He had tried to make himself presentable, but the frayed cuffs of his robe and his skin and bones frame told the story of his recent, miserable life. Of course, even the most unscrupulous cultivators in the world have standards, and we in the righteous orders have always despised dirty tricks like forbidden potions. Kai's unrestrained aggression during the tournament, where he had savaged nearly every beast he fought besides Orion, had surely earned him some brutal payback once the potion wore off. Now I was tied to the only intact chair in the room. When Kai saw I was awake, he knelt before me, his eyes filled with a near-insane obsession. Elara, you look so beautiful in a wedding dress. We couldn't be together in our last life. This time be with me, please. I'll risk my life to protect you. Elara, I love you. I wrinkled my nose in disgust and spat in his face without a second thought. Look at yourself. My Orion could crush you with one finger. You in this state, still dare to dream that I would ever love you? You must be dreaming. My words were harsh, I couldn't even be bothered to pretend. Kai didn't have anything good on him, and the sleeping powder he'd used on me was probably only effective for a short while. I flexed my hands and feet, and easily broke free from the rope he'd used to tie me up. Stupid cat. Did you really think this flimsy rope could hold me? Kai's face fell. He took a few steps forward, as if to restrain me again. I scoffed, kicked him to the ground, and planted my foot on his chest. Useless. He suddenly burst into tears. How did it come to this? Elara, it wasn't supposed to be like this. You must have forgotten our past. That's why you're treating me this way. Elara, in our last life, you bonded with me. I was your one true love. You cherished me, protected me, you wouldn't let anyone hurt me. Elara, wake up. And then what? I gave a cold laugh, drew the soft sword from my waist, and pressed it against Kai's neck. His expression suddenly turned guilty. He stammered, and then, you married me. And then at the ceremony to make me head of the order, you killed me and got together with Saraphina. I cut him off, stating the truth calmly. I whipped the sword around and stabbed the woman who was trying to attack me from behind. Saraphina's eyes went wide with disbelief as she collapsed, clutching her severed right arm, just as I had in my past life. Hearing my words, Kai's face turned ashen. He seemed to crumble in on himself. You remember too, don't you? I didn't answer. Under his pleading, pathetic gaze, I slit his throat. As the blood sprayed out, I said goodbye to the me from my past life. Dear Elara, don't waste your hatred on a worthless tiger. In this life, your love is a possessive golden dragon. He's handsome, powerful, unreasonable, and loves to pout. Right now, he's probably sulking by the door because he didn't get to kill the man who kidnapped his bride himself. In this life, you will be happy, blessed, and prosperous. So don't be afraid to love. Love is a truly, truly beautiful thing. I pushed open the door and smiled, tapping him on the head. Come on. Let's go get married. The end.